Rome did not dominate the ancient world by battlefield strength alone. Its legions were disciplined, its generals were brilliant, but the true power of Rome revealed itself after the fighting stopped. For those who stood against it, defeat was not an end. It was the beginning of a carefully constructed nightmare. Entire populations understood that once Rome won, what followed would echo far beyond a single war. The fear of Rome spread faster than its armies, carried by stories of what happened to those who resisted. Subscribe for more deep historical analysis. Share your perspective in the comments. Sources and further reading are in the description. This brutality was not random or driven by uncontrolled rage. It was strategic, calculated, and institutionalized. Roman leaders understood that fear could achieve what armies alone could not: long-term obedience. Every punishment, every execution, every public display was designed as a message broadcast across regions and generations. The logic was simple and ruthless. If the consequences of resistance were horrifying enough, fewer people would dare to rebel. Rome didn't just conquer land, it engineered submission through terror. Roman triumphs were among the most spectacular ceremonies of the ancient world, but beneath the celebration lay a darker purpose. These parades were carefully staged performances of dominance where the defeated were transformed into symbols of Rome's absolute power. At the center of these processions stood captured leaders, once kings, generals, and symbols of resistance, now reduced to prisoners in chains, forced to march through the streets of Rome while crowds jeered, mocked, and celebrated their downfall. One of the most striking examples is Vercingetorix, the leader who united the Gallic tribes against Rome. After his defeat, he was not executed immediately. Instead, he was imprisoned for 6 years, kept alive for a single purpose: to be displayed in Julius Caesar's triumph. On that day, he was paraded before the Roman people as a broken symbol of resistance, and then executed as soon as the spectacle ended. Similarly, Jugurtha, who once challenged Roman authority in North Africa, was dragged through the streets in chains before being thrown into a prison where he slowly died. These events were not just punishments, they were deliberate acts of dehumanization. Rome ensured that its enemies were not remembered as warriors, but as defeated objects, stripped of identity and dignity in front of an audience that celebrated their destruction. While Rome terrorized its enemies, it also turned that same brutality inward. Discipline within the Roman army was absolute, and failure, especially cowardice, was treated as a threat to the entire system. One of the most infamous methods of enforcement was decimation, a punishment so severe that it redefined loyalty through fear. When a unit failed in battle or showed signs of disobedience, the punishment was not directed at individuals alone. Instead, the entire group was forced to participate. Soldiers were divided into groups of 10, and lots were drawn. Every 10th man was selected, not by the enemy, but by chance. What followed was even more disturbing. The remaining 9 soldiers were ordered to execute their chosen comrade, often by beating him to death. This method created something deeper than fear of punishment. It created collective trauma and shared guilt. Soldiers were no longer just afraid of dying in battle. They feared becoming executioners of their own brothers. Commanders ensured that loyalty was not based on honor alone, but on terror. In this system, disobedience didn't just lead to death. It forced soldiers to destroy their own unity, reinforcing Rome's control from within. For Rome, war was not only about victory, it was about profit. Conquered populations were systematically transformed into economic assets, feeding a vast system of slavery that powered the Roman economy. Defeated enemies were no longer seen as people with rights or identities. They became commodities to be traded, sold, and exploited on an unprecedented scale. After the destruction of Carthage, tens of thousands of survivors were enslaved in a single operation. Families were separated, cultures were dismantled, and entire populations were absorbed into Rome's labor system. This was not chaos. It was organized, efficient, and routine. One of the central hubs of this trade was Delos, where the scale of human trafficking reached industrial levels. Historical accounts suggest that as many as 10,000 slaves could be processed in a single day. Buyers inspected people as property, assigning value based on age, strength, and skills. This system reveals a crucial aspect of Roman power. Cruelty was not only psychological, it was economic. Every conquest strengthened Rome financially, turning suffering into infrastructure. War supplied the empire, and the defeated became the foundation of its wealth. Few events demonstrate Rome's use of terror as clearly as its response to the slave revolt led by Spartacus. After years of resistance, the rebellion was crushed, but Rome's response was not limited to victory. It was designed to send a message that would resonate across generations. Approximately 6,000 captured rebels were crucified along the Appian Way, one of the busiest roads in Italy. Stretching for over 200 kilometers, this line of executions transformed the landscape into a corridor of death. This was not simply punishment. It was a calculated display. The bodies were left hanging for months, exposed to the elements, visible to anyone traveling the road. Merchants, soldiers, slaves, all were forced to witness the consequences of rebellion. Rome understood the power of visibility. By turning punishment into a permanent spectacle, it ensured that fear became part of everyday life. The message was unavoidable, repeated with every step along the road. Resistance leads not just to death, but to a slow, public, and unforgettable end. In some cases, Rome did not aim to control its enemies. It chose to erase them completely. This was not the result of uncontrolled destruction during war, but a deliberate political decision made in advance. Certain cities were marked not just for defeat, but for total annihilation. The fate of Carthage and Corinth illustrates this approach. Before the final campaigns even began, Roman leadership had already decided that these cities would cease to exist. After victory, the destruction was systematic. Buildings were dismantled, infrastructure was erased, and any remaining population was either killed or enslaved. This level of destruction went beyond military necessity. It was symbolic. By removing entire cities from the map, Rome eliminated not just immediate threats, but the possibility of future resistance. These places were not left as warnings. They were removed so completely that their absence became the warning itself. If physical destruction was not enough, Rome developed a punishment that targeted something even more fundamental: memory. Known as damnatio memoriae, this practice aimed to erase an individual from history entirely. When a person was subjected to this punishment, their existence was systematically dismantled. Their name was removed from inscriptions, their statues destroyed or altered, and their likeness erased from coins and public records. It was as if they had never existed. This form of punishment reveals a deep understanding of legacy and identity. In Roman culture, to be remembered was a form of immortality. To be forgotten was the ultimate loss. Damnatio memoriae did not just end a life. It eliminated the possibility of influence, legacy, or remembrance. In this system, death was not the final punishment. Oblivion was. Rome's dominance extended beyond physical and political control. It also targeted belief systems. Conquering a people meant more than defeating their Banach. It required breaking their spiritual foundation. After the capture of Jerusalem, Roman forces looted the sacred temple, taking religious artifacts of immense significance. Among them was the menorah, a central symbol of Jewish faith, which was later displayed in Rome as a trophy. This act was deeply symbolic. By showcasing sacred objects in a foreign capital, Rome sent a clear message: the gods of the defeated had failed to protect them. This undermined not only religious confidence, but also cultural identity. When belief collapses, resistance becomes harder to sustain. Rome understood that true control required more than physical dominance. It required psychological and spiritual submission. Rome's brutality was not senseless violence. It was structured, rational, and effective. Every punishment served a purpose within a larger system designed to maintain control over vast territories and diverse populations. By making the consequences of resistance overwhelmingly severe, Rome reduced the likelihood of rebellion. Fear became a tool as powerful as any legion. This raises a fundamental question. Would Rome have achieved the same level of dominance if it had chosen mercy over fear?